This is the Effing Business Podcast. You ask the questions, we answer them.
Today we're going to talk about spending, both professionally and personally, but more professionally, like as a business. What tools, tips, tricks, and why. Mr. CFO, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you for tuning in then. So I think that a lot of businesses or a lot of people think spending is bad. Cut spending, cut spending, cut spending. And that's, I think, a very awful mindset. Spending is good if you're spending it correctly. Okay. So you have two kinds of expenses, good expenses and bad expenses.
All right, let's hear.
So you want to cut the bad expenses so you can boost the good expenses. So for example, we have been successful in marketing, right? We want to figure out how to divert funds that are not working for us, right, away from what they're not working for us to marketing where it is working for us, right? So I think that people have to get rid of this mindset that spending is bad. They got to reduce costs. They have to spend more wisely. That's just what it is. So you have to. You want to say something? Mm-hmm. You have to be able to determine what's working and what's working well, and what's not working, and make those diversions with your capital.
Okay, so obviously people understand you have to spend money to make money. It's a phrase because of that. You said that marketing, when it works, spend more money on it, so on, right? I think also, just to get a little bit better understanding of spending for your company, is understanding there's fundamental spending, right? Things that you have to actually be in business, CRMs, things like that, wherever your business may be holding. And then there's expansion spending, right? Spending where
Capital expenses.
Exactly. Marketing, but
expensive one-time costs.
Or things that you are trying out. You have to understand that this is right now not an essential spend. It's an expansion. It's a test. So on.
R&D.
He's just going to keep throwing things out there, and I'm going to keep saying sure, right? So R&D, expansion, capital costs, right? But all those things, you have to understand that you have to categorize, but also understand that they're expansion, they're a test. You have to keep very close eye on them, because they can, if you make them essential and they're not essential, because they very quickly fall into essential because you're like, oh, but we'll be spending it for 2-3 months now. And what I'm saying? It sort of just falls off the radar. But, $1,000 a month is $12,000 a year, right? And for companies, $1,000 a month doesn't sound like a lot, but once you put it into a yearly number and you do that over many services or items or programs that you may be trying, next thing you know, you got $100,000 that you completely wasted a year.
So this is my conundrum, because we run a business and I also want to invest. That's my long-term goal. Historically, businesses that need the smallest investment, right, need the smallest capital gain cost. So if you're a telecommunications company, you don't want to have to keep rebuilding your infrastructure, right? You want to build it and know it's going to be there for 30 years or whatever time frame, significant, right? So historically, as an investor, like in the stock market, buying stocks and so forth, you want companies that have the lowest capital expenditures, the lowest having to rebuild our infrastructure, having to reinvest in ideas and so forth. You want an idea that works long term, right? It's just Coca-Cola. It's going to be Coca-Cola forever. Everybody points to that, right? But then as a business person, we're doing the opposite. We're constantly spending money on our incubators, trying to figure out new things and so on and so forth.
Right.
So I live between these two worlds in my mind, because I know what's healthiest for profits and what I want to develop. But I think that's something that's going to come to a head for us.
Right, but using Coca-Cola as an example, or these large old corporations is very difficult. They're not on the same.
No, because look at law firms. Law firms, they don't have to be like a 100-year law firm. They don't have to be around forever. They have a very simple business model. They have generally very low overhead, right? They have lawyers. They have paralegals,
right,
and that's it. Some of them have advertising, but they're not constantly spending money to iterate and figure out new business plans and new business methods. Like, they know how to litigate. That's what they do, right? So there's many industries that don't have this constant new expenditures to figure things out, beyond just Coca-Cola. Like, doctors are the same way. Hospitals are the same way. There's, maybe older industries, but, they don't have to constantly, acquire new businesses or spend money on research and development.
So is it just essential items that work that way? Like essential, like fundamental things that are always be around, meaning they're not like luxuries. Like ketchup. until people stop eating it.
Okay, when's that gonna happen?
Well,
When they
you,
stop eating
you
French
don't eat
fries?
mayonnaise, so I mean, it could happen.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna bring down the mayonnaise industry by myself.
No, there's too many fat people in the world. The fundamentals, the capital spending can stay low, like you mentioned,
Right.
but everything else, ancillary stuff, it doesn't really ever have that.
And that's the biggest challenge, I think, for businesses that don't have naturally very strong fundamentals, how to stay in place, continue bringing in profits without having to spend more money to boost or find new methods. And I think that almost creates like creativity, like by not being creative, by not spending more money, how to continue this and do it at the lowest cost for us.
Right. The ones that it's easy for are the ones that are fundamentally you can't do without. Power companies and,
Right.
and telecommunication, a lot of food products that are very fundamental. Realtors, yes, I mean, but
I mean,
doctors,
we could sit here all day
hospitals, right?
pointing out.
But there's a lot of fundamentals
Right.
industries, and then everything else is sort of ancillary to those fundamentals, right? So let's say real estate, our other businesses, an ancillary product of the insurance world,
Right.
of the real estate world.
But while it's ancillary, it's not necessarily something that calls for constant investment to improve. It's still a simple business. Now it relies on another business, right,
Right.
to exist. But it doesn't mean that we have to reinvest money into that business to make it work. Once we kind of get it up to the par, it should run
Right.
fairly smoothly.
So
without
most
more
companies.
money.
So let's talk to most of the companies most companies are growing. They're not. There's probably more companies that are below the par
Right.
than are above par.
Right.
Right. The opposite of golf, where you want to be below par. So
I'm gonna pretend like I know golf. You know how to play golf, yeah.
that sport.
Yep. Nope. So what's your question?
Let's talk to those people, right? Where they're growing, they're trying to get above par, and how they really monitor spending for the maximum. I mean, bang for the buck.
Right.
How do they get the most out of their dollar that they don't really have every day? And it's always hard. Either they're a business that has good cash flow but not a lot of it, or they have really bad cash flow and they have bad cash flow but the margins are really good. You know what I'm saying?
So when we went to a Gary Vee event, there was a guy, I don't remember his name, he worked with the Dolphins. He made like a really good point.
Yes, the president. Yeah.
Oh, is that what it was?
I think the president of football of business operations.
He was talking about like how a lot of people fool themselves. So like they think they're going to run a good restaurant or a bar, but not be on the main avenue, right? They're gonna save money in rent by being kind of on the side street, right?
And my food will bring them in.
Right, but no, like they need that high rent cost to bring in that revenue. So like I think that's what business leaders have to do or owners have to do. They have to match the where the revenue is coming from with what their expense is going to be. Don't think that you're going to save money, but you're also going to lose revenue, right? So like for us, we spend a lot of money on marketing, but it brings us healthy revenue as a result.
Right.
We don't want to cut marketing. We want to cut things that we want to go through our line items of expenditures and find things that are not bringing us revenue, that are not going to cut revenue.
Or that maybe we're used to and don't anymore.
Correct. So, for example, our office location has no value to our business, right? We can be literally anywhere, right? So, whereas a restaurant can't. So maybe we can, relocate somewhere that's cheaper. Those sort of things, right? So find ways to reduce expenditures that don't hurt your underlying business. And I think that's where a lot of people fool themselves, and they have to steer clear of that.